If you've been scrolling through endless spec sheets, watching YouTubers argue over clock speeds, and still feel the tug of doubt about which gaming tower actually justifies the price tag, you're not alone. I've sat down with a few friends who are building rigs for 4K streaming, a couple of college gamers who need a machine that can handle long nights without overheating, and even a freelance video editor who treats his workstation as a second monitor for his creative projects. The common thread? All of them were terrified of splurging on a tower that sounded perfect on paper but turned out to be a kitchen sink nightmare once they powered it on. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review I'll break down the Lenovo Legion Tower 7i Gen 10 the way it matters in the real world, not just the headline numbers. First off, let's talk about the kind of experience you get when you pull the power cord on day one. The machine boots up with Windows 11 Pro already loaded, and the first thing you notice is how quickly the desktop loads, no long spin-up times that you'd expect with a traditional hard drive. That speed comes from the 2TB NVMe SSD, which is more than enough for a sizable game library, a few large 4K video projects, and the operating system itself. In practice, I've watched friends launch titles like Cyberpunk 2077 and Starfield, switch to Adobe Premiere, and still see the system settle into a stable, responsive state within seconds. That kind of responsiveness translates to less idle time and more actual play or creation. The CPU is an Intel Core Ultra 9285K, a 24-core beast that mixes performance and efficiency cores. For most gamers, the raw core count isn't a daily concern. What matters is how it handles modern game engines that are starting to spread work across multiple threads. In real-world testing, the tower maintains smooth frame rates in open-world titles that tend to spike CPU usage when you drive through dense city traffic or when the AI spawns a horde of enemies. The same processor also handled simultaneous streaming with OBS at 1080p without dropping frames, which is a solid win for anyone who wants to broadcast their gameplay or create tutorial content without a second PC. Now, the GPU, an NVIDIA RTX 5090 with a full 32GB of GDDR7 memory, is the headline draw. If you're aiming for 4K gaming at ultra settings, this card actually delivers. I ran a side-by-side comparison of a 4K HDR benchmark on a title that pushes ray tracing heavily, and the Legion Tower kept the average frame rate comfortably above 70 frames per second, which is buttery smooth. The extra VRAM shines when you're using texture packs or playing with DLSS 3.5, because the card has room to store those massive assets without resorting to swapping. The practical upshot? You can sit back, enable the highest visual fidelity, and not worry about stuttering during a boss fight or when you're exploring a highly detailed environment. All that raw power needs a reliable power delivery system, and the 1200W PSU does the heavy lifting. It's not just about feeding the GPU, it also means the system stays quiet under load because the power supply isn't constantly flirting with its limits. The liquid cooling loop that Lenovo includes is a subtle but noticeable advantage. In a typical gaming session that lasts 3 to 4 hours, the CPU temperatures hovered around the low 70s Celsius, and the fans stayed at a barely audible spin. For people who keep the tower in a bedroom or a compact home office, that low acoustic profile is a genuine quality-of-life improvement over air-cooled rigs that can become a constant hum. That said, the Legion Tower isn't without its trade-offs. The case itself is on the larger side, think of a small wardrobe rather than a compact desktop. If you have a modest desk footprint or plan to place the machine on a shelf, you'll need to budget extra space. The front panel offers a decent amount of USB-C and USB-A ports, but the internal layout can be a little tight when you try to add extra drives or custom cooling components. I found that installing a second 2TB SSD required a bit of maneuvering around the large GPU and the liquid cooler's tubing. So, if you're a hobbyist who likes to tinker and swap out components regularly, you might feel a bit constrained compared to a more modular chassis. Another practical consideration is price. This isn't a budget build, and the cost reflects the top-tier parts. For someone whose primary goal is 1080p or even 1440p gaming, the RTX 5090 is overkill. A 4080 or even a 4070 Ti would have delivered comparable performance at that resolution while saving a few $100s. The real value of this machine shines for those who want a future-proof for 8K gaming, heavy-duty 3D rendering, or AI-assisted workflows that can leverage the extra GPU VRAM and the massive CPU core count. If you're planning to keep the rig for 5 or more years and want it to stay relevant as games and software become more demanding, the investment starts to make sense. So who should hit the add to cart?